This video essay will deal with some heavy topics that relate to the recent allegations about a famous Catholic apologist from an educational and critical thinking perspective, aimed at analyzing this phenomenon and share advice on how to avoid such outrageous events in the future. No explicit content will be shown or described, but subjects such as inappropriate communication and relationship, shameful online behavior, unethical spiritual intimacy, and overall blatant and unhinged abuse of authority will be discussed. This video is meant to raise awareness over the worrisome growing rise in abuse that takes place in the online apologetics sphere. We are not condoning any actions made against the said apologist, and we strongly condemn any hate sent towards him. We also need to wait and see if the accusations are true or not, so we will be operating under the assumption that he is innocent until proven guilty. However, we will use his alleged case in order to prove a broader point, that of silent, continuous, and harsh treatment towards the female faithful of the online sphere. Towards the end of the video, we will provide 2 personal testimonies to further illustrate the dangers and damage that such situations can cause to women. Please like, subscribe, comment about your own experiences about this topic, and share it around in order to spread this video to others that might be in need of such a thing. The things discussed in this essay might be normal and common sense to many viewers, but this is not the case with most young people, so our video might be their first contact with an educational approach to immoral and dangerous behavior online. We have provided timestamps for you to jump to relevant topics as you see fit. In the digital age, many of us have found deep connections with online religious communities and uncovered truths about the Christian faith. But not all of these spaces are safe, and this video is a warning, not to scandalize or scare off people, but to protect the vulnerable, especially for women and girls who trust and follow male online religious leaders. Most of these content creators are usually not under direct church authority, and, if they are, their higher-ups should also be held responsible for failing to do their job, or, in the worst-case scenario, enable this behavior. They are also viewed and regarded as mentors and theological authorities by young faithful, and they typically operate in a generally unregulated digital environment, such as YouTube, Discord, Instagram, or TikTok. A few days ago, a major scandal has erupted that involves the rising star of mainstream Catholic apologetics named Voice of Reason, who recently had a debate with our Orthodox apologist, Ubi Petrus. Voice of Reason is accused of highly inappropriate behavior with his female fans and of alleged improper and possibly unlawful communications with a minor. We reiterate now that until proven guilty, he is by law innocent and should be treated as such. In addition to him, other Catholic apologists are mentioned as allegedly doing shameful and immoral acts towards women as well. It seems there's a scandal every month within the online apologetics community, but not all of them are as popular as the one involving Dr. Michael Brown, who allegedly had inappropriate relations with a female subordinate of his, or Michael Voris of church militant fame, who allegedly made improper advances towards male coworkers. This kind of situation is probably more common than we like to admit, even if they are kept hidden from the public eye. We will address some of the main elements of such malicious events and how to protect oneself from getting caught up in bad situations. Let's make 2 things very clear. This video does not say men bad and women good, or anything similar to this. What we're trying to highlight is a problem that is overlooked and has started to overflow due to it not being handled properly. The second element is about what constitutes as abuse of power within the apologist-student dynamic. One does not mistakenly end up creating a toxic relationship with a younger female fan. It is a conscious and deliberate act with a clear intention and motive. People can cause harm to others unknowingly, but that is not the subject of this discussion. We are only addressing the intentional action of trying to satisfy one's vicious needs through emotionally manipulating a victim. It is deliberate and not a mistake. We are also keenly aware of female toxic behavior, about which we will talk in a future video and not the subject of this video, and neither is general male toxicity the topic. We're strictly talking about inappropriate relationships between an online religious figure of authority and their female fans or students. There has been a deafening lack of sympathy shown to the alleged female victims of the recent Catholic apologist scandal, or, in best case scenario, an almost total lack of interest on their well-being and future. The male apologist is the front and center of this whole fiasco, with little to no regard to his alleged victims. His position, feelings, status, and actions are what matter, and not the consequences of the alleged behavior towards women. There was barely any sympathy offered to the victims from even Catholic female influencers, which tawed the line provided to them by the Catholic establishment. When we talk about the Catholic establishment, we mean the incredible machinery that powers the vast majority of online Catholic content, from websites to newspapers, and even popular YouTube apologists and clergy. Most of them are part of the same nefarious system that is deathly silent about the broad accusations of rampant abuse of all kinds in amongst the clergy and in the seminaries. The following section will include the main patterns of what we would describe to be an abusive and deceptive relationship. While things can differ from situation to situation, the most common aspects will be included in here. The online personality usually has the following traits: is respected and admired, appears charismatic, friendly, trustworthy, and overall virtuous, controls communication channels, has friends in moderation teams that uphold his wishes, and has a lot of admirers. YouTube content creators may interact with fans through comments, private messages on X, emails, or even fan meetings. They usually single out certain female fans for special recognition. On Discord servers, they can often reach out under the guise of helping new members or provide private guidance. The apologist begins to convince the target that they share a unique bond by saying things like, "You're different from everyone else here. I feel like I can tell you things I don't tell anyone. You're so mature for your age. You make me feel different," or "I think that we are fated to be together." Over time, conversations become more personal and increasingly inappropriate in nature. Discussions of relationships with constant love bombing, like, "You're my queen, I love you the most, I've never felt like this before," or flirtatious jokes or compliments, like, "You're so sweet that I would get diabetes from you." And finally, request for private photos or videos that are improper, saying, "I'm curious how you would look in these clothes." The next stage involves the content creator making sure that the potential victim will not reveal their relationship to anybody, and may say things like, "Don't tell anyone we're talking about this. People wouldn't understand our connection. If you tell anyone, it could ruin everything for the both of us. If you love me, you will protect me, and we will reveal everything later on." If the target hesitates, the apologist can resort to emotional blackmail, such as guilt trips, saying, "I thought you trusted me. I'm so disappointed in you." Threats of withdrawal. "I guess you're like everyone else. We should stop everything." And playing the victim. "I'm going through so much, and you're the only one who understands. I did so much for you, and this is how you repay me?" The last phase is when the potential victim is finally seduced and exploited. Requests for explicit images or videos, proposals for highly tensed conversations via video calls, and attempts to meet in person or participate in hookups. Generally, after the exploiter has fulfilled his dark desires, then he will either ghost or detach from the victim, or in some extreme cases, concoct a tragic backstory to his life that would prevent him from being persecuted morally by his target, saying excuses like, "I'm so sorry, I had a really bad childhood. I'm a victim too, and I don't want to drag you into my mess as well. You're better off without me." The summary of the previous section is the following. 1. Love bombing. 2. Flirting disguised as spiritual conversations. 3. Frequent DM talks in order to have private theological lessons. 4. Unsolicited, explicit language and pressure to reveal vulnerable situations. And 5. Emotional blackmail along the lines of being ungrateful towards them if the victims refuse the advances. The finality of these exchanges is usually the transition from an emotionally charged conversation to direct, suggestive messaging and sharing of shameful material, which has nothing to do with theology or any other sort of spiritual guidance. Generally, when someone presents themselves as a holy and intellectual man and then uses that spiritual facade to pursue inappropriate relationships with members of their audience, it can fracture trust in the whole apologetic movement and overall make people depart in disgust from the church. This is a real danger that we, as Orthodox Christians, should be wary of as well. There are a few things that one can do to mitigate the risks of a bad relational development, such as avoid talking with people that others avoid. Blacklisted individuals are usually blacklisted for a reason. Keep spiritual conversations in public or group spaces, or only with clergy. Avoid private DMs unless there's a real need for them, and even then, seek other female guidance if possible. Talk to a trusted friend or family member if something makes you feel uncomfortable. Save evidence if you think that people are being inappropriate. You are not gossiping or overreacting, and this evidence could help protect only yourself, but prevent others from being harmed as well. Notify relevant authorities, such as your parents, priests, and, if online, server moderators if you are a minor and an adult talks to you inappropriately via DMs. Finally, stick to mainstream online communities and Discord servers. Avoid smaller or niche ones, as the moderation teams are usually better. We must all remember that we don't owe anyone emotional access to our inner life just because they can quote scripture or speak like a pious person. It is not a sin to set up boundaries with other people. On the contrary, it is advisable to do so in order not to fall into sin by overly associating with bad actions of people you don't want to associate with. Regardless of how smart and educated the apologist is, we must never forget that they are only human, and thus have human weaknesses, some of which can take control over them, just like how they do with us. A true man of Christ would never ask a fellow sister in faith to do shameful and degrading acts that would endanger the salvation of their souls. Let's be clear about something. The objectification of the female body is a despicable act by default, but coupled with the fact that the objectifier is a so-called apologist is doubly outrageous. Unfortunately, these individuals are not that rare. In fact, they are a very common occurrence, especially in religious Discord servers, in which the male leadership and moderator team have lax rules in regards to inappropriate actions towards females, even minors, or in some outrageous cases, even contribute to this atmosphere of abuse. Virtually all major Catholic servers are affected by these nefarious events, and there doesn't seem to be an end to them in sight. Unfortunately, these problems also exist, albeit to a lesser extent, in other Christian servers, Protestant and even Orthodox. We would also like to mention the Muslim servers, which deserve a dedicated video just related to the abhorrent treatment of female faithful and their beyond creepy emotional abuse of potential converts. The main problem within the gravely affected servers is that the male leadership, although portraying itself as pious and chaste, following strict Catholic morals, in reality are opportunistic males that did not have success with women in real life and vent their frustrations in the online sphere, which offers them chances that did not exist elsewhere. Within the online religious community, their apparent expertise on various subjects represents a form of authority that is conferred upon them by their audience, who knows less than them. With their newfound positions of leadership, usually spiritual in nature, they viciously pursue their real-life goals of attaining women in the community that they nurture. What's worse is that there are not just a few that think or behave this way, as, in actuality, the majority of them are like this, which makes reporting and dealing with abuse very difficult, since most of the moderators share the same noxious philosophy. Moreover, as most of the online Catholic men share some sort of traditional view concerning patriarchy, they are predisposed to regard women as inherently lesser. And by lesser, we don't mean it in a biblical sense, of the man is the head of the woman, but more akin to a second tier of humanity. Women are thus slightly better than household servants and should be subservient in totality to men, as in all women to all men, regardless of relationships. One does not need to think a lot to see that this arrangement is highly problematic. We're all adherents of traditional gender norms here, but that does not mean that women have a duty to gratify the lustful desires of men online. Being thought of an object whose sole purpose is to please men is not an uncommon belief among many so-called traditionalist men online, who, like previously mentioned, lack any meaningful real-life connection with the opposite gender, and thus seek immoral liaisons in order to make up for their misfortune. This is not okay. Using traditionalism as an excuse for shameful behaviors towards women is not only horrendous, but is deeply degrading to women. Sisters, as a fellow faithful, I exhort you to wake up to the dangers that this abusive behavior brings to us all and try to better guard our honor and dignity, and not to allow ourselves to be trampled for the fake recognition of a false prophet. To use the holy name of Christ, the Church's dogma, and pious teachings of the saints in order to enact perverse and obscene requests from women is beyond deplorable. Furthermore, some of you might think that you know what you are doing and that you're in control of the conversation. You are not. These men are usually experienced talkers and debaters that have been through many failures and successes and generally know what works and what doesn't in a discussion. Young women, and especially girls, are at an obvious disadvantage when it comes to life experience and their ability to recognize signs of manipulation or inappropriate boundary crossings. If you've experienced spiritual manipulation or boundary crossing by an online apologist or content creator, please reach out to someone you trust and that can help you deal with the situation, such as family, friends, server moderators on Discord, or persons that deal with issues like this on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can always reach out to us on our Discord server as well. The link is in the description. We also strongly recommend talking about it with your priest or somebody from your parish, or if these things are unavailable to you, please contact a priest online regarding this problem, regardless of denomination or faith. We recommend the deacons and priests of the Orthodox Christian Discord server. Finally, I will go over 2 such cases of online religious inappropriate attempts at relationships. The first one is my own personal experience of this kind and is about my first inquiry into orthodoxy. Throughout my exploration of the religious landscape, I have encountered people who presented themselves as caring, faithful, or just fellow seekers wanting to grow together. At first, they were extremely kind, attentive, and seemed to care deeply about my spiritual well-being and religious direction. But over time, their behavior shifted as they tried isolating me from the rest of the group, saying I was special, and insisted on private conversations to teach me more. Some calls even crossed boundaries by saying very inappropriate things, as the power dynamics made it difficult for me to stand up for myself successfully. When I finally pushed back or asked too many questions, their tone changed completely and became angry and insulting, proceeding to emotionally blackmail and gaslight me that I was the one instigating the whole ordeal because of my lack of faith in both them and God. Of course, later on they would apologize and try to pull me back in, succeeding as I thought their apology was sincere. This cycle repeated until I finally cut them off after becoming a complete emotional wreck. Unfortunately, this person moved on and did similar things to other women until the consequences of those actions caught up. I prayed intensely for their betterment, since, despite their regrettable actions towards me, I am still thankful for them for being the first person that made me interested in Eastern Orthodoxy. Looking back, I realize I was too trusting and naive about people, but at the same time, I recognized the danger that I was putting myself in. But that did not stop me from proceeding, since I was confident that, in the end, God will help me fix this situation. God did answer, but not in the way I was expecting it to happen. I also reached out to friends in order to ask their opinion about the situation. However, I ignored their valuable advice and continued pushing forward, further sinking deeper and deeper into this hole of despair and confusion. But God saved me before it was too late, and I am thankful towards Him every day since then. Now I know to trust my friends more and to analyze the situations rationally and realistically. Many people genuinely looking to learn, especially about Holy Orthodoxy, have faced this kind of manipulation from those pretending to be spiritual mentors or teachers, and have fallen into their snares. My message to them, and to those starting out, is that it's essential to stay cautious, ask questions, talk with friends or family, uphold your dignity, and protect your well-being online, no matter how religious someone may seem. Abuse of power is still abuse of power, even if it's done within a religious or spiritual context. Don't remain silent. Speak out. It's never too late. The next case is about a very close friend of mine and involves a group of Catholics from her youth. A few years ago, when I was 15 and churches were closed due to COVID, I joined a Christian group on Roblox to grow my faith. The group had a mix of teens and young adults, and they ran a Discord server where people would hang out, talk about faith, help each other with their problems, and play games together. At one point, they brought back an older friend named Anon, who, they said, had struggled in the past with inappropriate attractions towards a certain demographic of people, but claimed he was working on getting better and solving his issues. Only the male server leaders knew this history and purposely hid it from the rest of us, who were mostly girls. Not only did they allow him back in, but they also asked us to keep interacting with Anon so he wouldn't suspect we knew. We were supposed to help him fight his urges by being nice towards him. We did not want to do it, but felt powerless to oppose our server leaders since they were respected and have been nice to us in the past, so we reluctantly agreed to it. Over time, some of us started noticing some red flags. Anon would only join voice chats when certain younger girls were online. He even made a private group chat with a few of us. He would ask strange personal questions, like our ages, physical features, and the age of consent in our states, all under the guise of opening up to us and wanting to be friends. He often shared stories about being unhappy or struggling emotionally, and made many of us feel like we were somehow responsible for keeping him stable. So we persevered, despite us being scared and put off by the conversations. Eventually, the stress became too much, and the girls started leaving the server or only talking in private chats. After about a month, we finally could not take it anymore and told him we knew about his past. He reacted with anger, guilt, and frustration, constantly asking us questions about who told us about him and acting very aggressive. Shortly afterwards, Anon left the server and we never heard from him again. Please do not repeat our mistakes and open up to others if you feel that the server moderators do not help or, in worst case scenario, are actively enabling this sort of dangerous behavior. Young people do not know better, and that's why they should have a healthy relationship with their parents or other family members and are not trustful of strangers, especially those from shady Discord servers. When in doubt, always reach out to people from large and acknowledged communities. You are not alone. Remember this, you are not alone, and somebody is just a click away from you. You do not have to go through this alone. Reaching out takes just 1 second. You can always join our Discord server, link is in the description, for further discussions, or check out the Orthodox Christian server. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below your experiences regarding this heavy topic, and please share this video to people that might be at risk. God bless, and please take care.